thank you everyone for joining us today for Dropbox for video surveillance. My name is Cloudastructure. I'm the founder and CEO of Kingscrowd, and I'm joined here by Rick Bentley, who is the founder and CEO of Cloudastructure. It's a new startup building AI and cloud tech for the video surveillance market. So with that, Rick, I would love if you kind of jumped in, give us a little bit of background on yourself and what Cloudastructure is all about.
Sure. So I've been what Silicon Valley calls a serial entrepreneur. Let's see, bachelor's physics, master engineering from Berkeley. Worked at a series of startups, including Sensory, which is still out there doing speech recognition and face recognition and stuff. I was at General Magic, which Forbes called the most important company that never made it. We built the smartphone and Siri back in the 90s, right? That might be in too early.
Yeah.
I started something called Televoke, which was backed by SoftBank and W.I. Harper. We were connecting people to things. Starting in 1998, before there was an Internet of Things. That company, so we started out in the vehicle aftermarket because if you wanted to track something back then and you had a cellular transceiver and a GPS receiver, it would be pretty big. You know? And so if you wanted to track your cat, you would know where it always was because it would just be in a circle around that device, right? But cars could handle the size back then. And so we built a system. So if your alarm went off, you got a phone call. If you're locked out, use your phone, not a smartphone, just a phone to unlock your doors.
Yep.
Go online, see a map of where the car is, that sort of stuff, right? And so we merged that one with another company called Telcontar. The merged entity changed its name to Jakarta, and then Uber bought them in 2015 after a very long fuse. Yeah, you learn all about the perils of VC money and what a down round does to your equity as a founder and stuff. I was able to get a new video arcade machine out of it pretty much when it was all over. But after that, I started looking at video surveillance. It all started when we were doing Televoke, actually. We had an office space south of Market in San Francisco. We were venture backed. And so we had the stuff you'd expect, right? We had the access control system. You know, you swipe your badge to open the door.
Yep.
We had an alarm. We had a guy at the front desk, right? But around noon, someone walked in dressed like you or me, picked up a notebook off of a desk and walked out, right? So that is a time for us to go find the video. Well, the landlord had the video. Right?
Yeah.
So we went to see the video feed, and he said, "Oh, someone unplugged it. I guess to plug in the vacuum cleaner." Right? And I'm like, "Wait! Time out! This thing's not monitored, right? Like the video's all here on premises. Like, why'd you buy such a crappy system?"
Yeah.
And he says, "Hey, look, I'm managing Class A real estate in the hottest market on the planet. Like I define price insensitive. I just bought the most expensive one." I'm like, wow, this industry is really backwards. It needs some fixing, right? And so we took a stab at it way back in the early 2000s. It was just way too early to market. People weren't ready to put their data in the cloud yet, right? The cloud wasn't even defined yet, right? So sorry for the background views, by the way. Got 3 dogs and a fiance walking around.
I love it.
Working home for the morning. I'll be in the office later. But anyway, so then the shift happened somewhere along the way, right? Here's how I would describe it. If you look at the IT server room, it's not there anymore, right? Like there used to be a file server, and now it's on Box or Dropbox, right? There used to be an email server. Everyone ran Microsoft Exchange on premises, right? And nobody does that now. Now it's Gmail or Outlook 365 or whatever Microsoft calls it this week, right? But it's all in the cloud, right? There used to be a CRM server that's now Salesforce, right? If you go down the list of all the servers that aren't there anymore, right? You finally get to the bottom, and there's 2 servers left in every single building at every company you walk into today. And that is an access control server. You swipe your badge to open the door. And there's a video surveillance server. And so we're just putting those last 2 in the cloud.
That's awesome. So curious to hear from you, and you kind of hit on it just for a second, but your experience building a company that sold to Uber, both good and bad, having that experience, having founded that company, how does that kind of help you in building out Cloudastructure?
I think in several ways. You have to go through the whole VC cycle at least once to understand the game, right? So everything from how you get the VCs on board in the first place, right, to how you keep interests aligned when you're working together so you're all on the same side. I mean, a lot of people say about VCs, yeah, they're sharks, but there are sharks, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's true, right, until there's conflict over resources, right? And the resources is the equity in the company, and something's happening like a sale, right? Then they're not your sharks. They're just hungry sharks, right? And they're on your board, and they can replace you tomorrow if they wrote their investment docs right? And then all the way to the exit, right? I'd say I've had a pretty good first exit, right? Uber bought Jakarta for a amount that's widely rumored to be $50 million, which I can't confirm or deny, but it's but along the way, after the VCs I brought in, we got in the gray-haired CEO, right? And then he brought in Norwest, and that's top tier VC, right?
Sure.
That sounds great. And Norwest came in at 120 million post money valuation.
Wow.
Right. And Google was 93% of their revenue at the time. I wasn't operating there anymore, so I'm using the third person for the same company, right? And one day Google wasn't their revenue anymore, and they lost 93% of the revenue. And so Norwest came back with a $120,000 pre-money valuation, right? From 120 million post, 120,000 pre. So the company went down in value by 3 orders of magnitude, effectively overnight.
Yeah.
Right? So that's really hard then to get a piece of the pie afterwards, right? So they're able to turn it around and get it sold, but after a down round like that, as any founder, you're washed out, right? As any early investor, you're washed out for everyone who's looking at crowdfunding, right?
Sure.
There's stuff that happens in the future that's very difficult to predict and impossible to protect against, right?
Yeah. So you've been seasoned.
Yeah. Disillusioned, seasoned, right?
No, that's definitely a struggle, but I rather back the founder who's gone through it and already knows how to deal with that, rather than the one who hasn't gone down that path just yet and is in store for a surprise.
Yeah. Well, for the early stage investor, the founder is their best friend, right? Because the early stage investor can't get washed out without the founder getting washed out, basically, right? And vice versa. Yeah. So we're kind of all on the same side, right?
No, absolutely. I completely agree with you. So can you help us understand why the video surveillance market has lagged so much to this, our CRMs and our legal and everything else that's moved to the cloud? Why is it that video surveillance and these ID surveillance things have not moved to the cloud yet?
I think there's 2 reasons. One is the incumbents themselves.
Yep.
And, for them, they hire offshore development teams to write Windows apps, right, which were available on CD or DVD until just not that many years ago. Right now, you can download the app, right, and then you run it locally. These are it's not in their DNA to build and host stuff in the cloud, right? It's just not there, right? Another thing about the incumbents is they really don't spend on R&D. Their R&D department really is their M&A department, and we're talking about Johnson Controls, Tyco, all these massive companies that are spreading everything from tractors to plows to video surveillance, right? They're like doing everything across the gamut. They just wait to see what catches on fire, and then they buy it, sometimes at insane multiples, right?
Yep.
But those multiples don't seem so insane when they take it, put their brand on it, and stuff it through their channel, right? And then it does pretty well, actually. So the incumbents is one, and then the other side is for video. My grandfather used to say, if you're trying to do something that you don't have the resources for, he said you got 9 pounds of shit in a 5-pound sack, right? Like it's just not gonna fit. And video is big, right?
Yeah.
you know, an on-premises NVR system can have fiber channel storage array attached to it, right? You could have, you know, multi-socket motherboards with, you know, tons of cores, doing maybe even GPU accelerators for some of the graphics stuff, right? It's a big thing to tackle, right? And so to get that broadband, to get that video captured on premises reliably, so even when there's not broadband, you're okay, and then push it to the cloud when as broadband allows in an intelligent way, because you don't want to have a situation where you never get all the video off site, right?
Yeah.
All that stuff ends up being really hard, right? So you can see we started it, like I mentioned, I first looked at it in 2003, right? Back when we had the incident with the previous company, and the math didn't quite work right. But in this case, Moore's law is totally on your side. You know, Moore's law says every 18 months, computational power doubles, right? That goes for CPU and broadband, but it doesn't go for camera sensor, right? And so, yeah, we got 8 megapixel cameras now. Cool. But, you know, they were a quarter megapixel 20 years ago, right? It's not keeping up with Moore's law, right? The way everything else is. So, you know, the tables have been turning in our favor, right? It's easier for us to handle that cool new high res camera, no problem, right? Yep. We dump it into the system, and it all works out now, right? But I think there's a real barrier for people in the past, right? And because they weren't there doing it when it was a lot harder, they don't do it well now if they're trying, right? For access control, I have to say it's a real mystery. It's just a much better way to do it. If you've got 23 locations, I want to give you a badge that then works at 23 locations. The incumbents will sell you 23 on-premises systems, which are 23 different web servers, right? That need a fixed IP address. They need a hole in the firewall. They need port forwarding the router if you're going to get to them from off-site, right? Yep. Or you still need the fixed IP address. You need some sort of crazy VPN system and some sort of database sync tool so that when I add you, you have access to 23 locations all of a sudden, right? Having each panel phone home to the cloud is just such a much better way to do it. But I can see how, from the incumbent's perspective, that they wouldn't get there, right? You kind of have to come up with a fresh set of eyes to make it make sense.
Can you tell us a little bit about, this is something that you taught me, so I didn't know this before we had chatted, that the tailgating issue that exists when people are walking into buildings, and how you guys solve for that tailgating issue, or help solve for it.
Yeah, so I was at Google. I was an advisor at Google X a few years ago even. And at Google, we had a guy called the tailgater. And he was a guy in an alligator suit. And when you badged in, he tried to walk in behind you dressed as an alligator, right? And when people let him in, and every week, tons of people would let him in, right? We would run the video at the all hands meeting on Friday and show who let the tailgater in this week, right? That's a really low tech solution to the problem, right? So we don't have this to market yet, but we're working on it in development. And what we do is, because we have the doors and we have the cameras, we have a complete set of data that we need to detect tailgating. You badge in, your badge is recognized, it's authorized, the door unlocks. We see the door open, right? These are all events that we're tracking.
Sure.
Then the camera counts the number of blobs going through the door.
Yep.
Right? So then the door closes eventually. If more blobs went through than there were authorized badge swipes while the door was open, right? Then there's a tailgate event. Right. And that doesn't mean a security guard needs to come run and tackle you, right? It means that you get an email that says, hey, Chris, here's the video of you letting this guy in behind you, right? Yep. Click here to acknowledge receipt of the security policy. Promise to be a good monkey and not do this again, right? That will change more behavior in a week than an army of dudes in tailgate outfits.
Right.
Right?
Makes a lot of sense.
And the guy at the front desk is doing two things, right? When you badge in, he's a picture on a good system. Your picture comes, because those cards are trivial. You can go to our website, go to cloudastructure.com. You'll see a video there of how easy it is to copy these RFID cards. They're woefully insecure. A metal key is actually more secure than the RFID card. But in any case, he's doing two things. You badge in on a good system, your picture comes up. Make sure I'm not using your card or a copy of your card, right? But in reality, what happens is your picture comes up, he looks at you, He looks at his screen. He looks at you, and inside his head he goes, white guy. That's it, right? I can use your badge. You can use my badge. We can use the badges of half the people in most offices, right? Like, it's not really face recognition. I did a demo for CNN. I went out to New York, and I copied one of their employees' badges with their permission, right?
Yeah.
To show them how easy it was. And the badge I happened to copy was for a pregnant woman, right? I mean, she was like 8 months pregnant. And so I badge in as her, right? And the security guard goes, hey, right? But it had to be a pregnant woman to actually get that to happen, right? So the security guard, that's the first thing he's doing. He's making sure face matches badge, right?
Yep.
And the second thing he's doing is when you badge in, he's making sure I'm not walking behind you, right? That's it. That's it takes 2 guards because one has to be able to go to the bathroom, right? 3 8-hour shifts per day to guard 1 door, right? What about the side door, the back door, the parking garage, the IT closet, the document room, the roof? Like, who's watching those doors, right? Nobody, right? So we can do it better. We're better at face recognition than the guard who's just doing, age, gender within, some number of degrees, right? And that's it. We can do it better than he can do it. And we can do it on all the doors.
So talk to me about some of the AI capabilities that you guys are building and how that enables things like facial recognition and what else it enables you to do.
Yeah, so the first thing is you have to get in the cloud. Otherwise, you have to process stuff on premises, right? And the cloud's just not more powerful. It has a lot more information. It has information across multiple sites, right?
Yep.
So if we have multiple buildings and you go back and forth between them, right? We're looking at your faces from all those locations. And on-premises solutions are just looking at you in isolation at one location. That's the best they could do. So the first thing is you have to get the data in the cloud if you want to do anything intelligent with it, right? Once it's in the cloud, we do a few things. The first thing we do is we go through all the video with a computer vision system. We're originally using Microsoft Cognitive Services, but we've since pivoted to TensorFlow. It actually works better there. And we get back a list of tags of everything that's in the video. Right? So dog, person, kid, car, motorcycle, bike, whatever, right? And then we have to do some linguistics on top of that. So for example, if you search for vehicle, you probably want car, truck, and bike and motorcycle all to come back, right? But the computer vision system training models don't have that layer of hierarchy. The linguistics sort it out, right? So anyway, you can now search the video. So you've probably all seen video surveillance where it's just something really boring's going on forever, right? Even though we're first capturing motion before we capture anything else. Branches blowing, cars driving by, whatever it is that you don't care about is mostly what's on your video. It's just the way it is, right? So all of a sudden you can now search and say, hey, just show me when there's people. Right? I just want to see when there's people. I don't care about the branches blowing or the cars driving by on the street all day. Show me when there are people here, right? So just as a first cut, that's really highly valuable, right? Then after we've detected a person, we can detect to see if we see a face, which means we're not running face detect 24/7 on every camera. We're first detecting for motion, and then we're detecting for people, and then we're detecting for face, right? If we detected a face, then we can put that through a face recognition system, right? This is because it's all up in the cloud, and we're doing all this processing at the same time, right? And that's just so much more efficient than trying to run face detect 24/7 on every stream on premises, right? Which is what incumbents who are getting into face recognition are trying to do, right?
So could you actually, if you wanted, if there was a person they thought had stolen a computer or would have been there during that time or something like that, right? Could you say, hey, go in and find this guy every time he pops up over the past 3 days and like find only those moments?
Yeah. So so the answer is yes. Which is a very valuable feature, but more importantly is how we do it. Legacy systems would say, here's a picture of this guy, right? Go search through the video and find him. I'll be back in a few hours to see the result, right? And instead, when we detect a face, we're running it through the face recognition system to group him with other like-looking faces, right? So every time your face has been across the camera, right, we've detected that face, and then the recognition system is grouping all those faces. Have you ever looked into that TensorFlow? I'm sure you heard about it, right?
I've heard of TensorFlow, yeah.
Yeah. It's should I just do one minute sidebar on kind of how it works?
Yeah, please.
So it's vector algebra, basically, right? What it's doing is figuring out how far apart the points are in a multi-dimensional space. So in a 2D space, right? Let's say we're just looking at skin tone and how far apart your eyes are, right? Let's just imagine that was all we're looking for, only 2 variables for face recognition. In reality, there's hundreds, right? But let's just say we're looking at 2, right? So you and I have pretty close together skin tone, so we'd be kind of both over here, but maybe one of our eyes is farther apart, so one of us is over here then, right?
Yep.
But they would show up in these different groups, right? All these skin tones like here, all these here, right? And TensorFlow is just really good at doing the math to see how far apart different points are, right? And it can do that in 27 or 270 or however many other dimensions there are too, right? So when we're doing face recognition, all we're doing is when a face comes in, we're seeing where it is in this multidimensional space and what's around it, right? So when you go, where else has that guy been? Well, here's all the rest of that guy. He's in this little group of faces over here, right? And we've tagged all that video. So we just show you all the video of that guy.
Yeah, that's amazing.
We don't have to go back and look through all the video to find them, right? We've already tagged them on the way in. It's a lot like how Google indexed the web, right? Google made the web usable before you couldn't search it, right? They went through and they searched all the web and indexed it, and then off the indices, I want to see puppies, right? And, oh yeah, we got puppies on all of these pages here. Here's all the pages with puppies.
That's really cool. So would the technology that you're creating enable people to hire less security guards, or is this just going to better enable the people they already have?
Yeah, I think that's up to them, right? I think a lot of people, a lot of new companies do well when they kind of expand the market, right? You know, Airbnb didn't get a percentage of people renting out their homes. They kind of created the market of renting out their homes, right? Uber didn't get a percentage of ride sharing. They created more or less ride sharing, right? We think that by making the building smart like this, it's kind of a new thing, right? You can keep the guards. People like having, you know, the guy at the front desk. If someone slips or falls or is attacked, there's someone right there who can do something, right? I think it's more like we can liberate him from the tyranny of having to look at the monitor all the time and going, white guy, when you badge in, right? And let him do other things that are more helpful to the people there, right?
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. From a sales standpoint, in selling Cloudastructure, who are the stakeholders that you have to sell through to at a corporation, and what has that experience been like to date?
Yeah, it used to be the facilities guy, right? I don't mean to be sexist, but he's almost always a guy. And back when he was doing access control on metal keys and video surveillance was on VHS tape, right, on the VCR. Yeah, this works great because he's also doing the lawn sprinklers and managing the lease with the landlord and stuff like that. That's like his job, right? And he's being in charge of it. But the thing is now, both access control and video have moved. It's no longer metal keys. It's cards connected to a computer system, right, that's online that may have to work across multiple locations. So now it's on the network also across the internet, right? And video surveillance is no longer a VHS tape, right? It's this big fiber channel storage array with 27 drives in it and all this stuff, right? Like, it's really shifted out from underneath them. So we see again and again and again, the facilities guy is out and the IT guy is in, right? Or gal, right? One nice thing about this move for us, unfortunately for Target, remember Target had their big data breach like 5 years ago?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. So they had, that all went down because they had a Windows server in front of the HVAC system. Right? They had an on-premises solution for their energy efficiency, whatever, right? That went in front of the HVAC system, and that became the attack point, right? Just like there's a Windows server for the access control system and a Windows server for the video surveillance system, right? These are all IT goes nuts when you say I want to run a web server on premises, right? But that's what the incumbents do. Anyway, once that happened, things changed very quickly in the space, right? Suddenly, the facilities guy was not allowed to just show up and plug in a web server. IT now had oversight on all this stuff, right? It was from the board level down, right? So the stakeholders shifted, IT used to just have the power to, help, right? Now they at least have the power to say no, and more often than not, it's their budget, and they're the only ones with the power to say yes, right?
Yep.
So that's been a real boon for us.
That's awesome. And in terms of the your early adopter customers, what have they kind of look like? Is there a similar theme across them, or is it kind of varied?
Yeah, so there's this great book called Crossing the Chasm that I encourage every entrepreneur to read, and it's basically about finding your beachhead, landing and expanding, right?
Yep.
And we haven't quite found that yet. We know it's anyone with multiple locations, right? If you just got one location, you're not a great customer. I tell everyone, go buy a drop cam, get a Wemo or whatever it is this week, consumer solution, knock yourself out, right?
Yeah.
But if you've got dozens of locations, you need a different type of solution, and that's us. Our customers that have been really great have had multiple locations, right? So we have a very large University of California campus that has hundreds of cameras, right? And that's been fantastic for us, right? We got a very large utility out in Texas that's got over 100 doors, right? That's good for us too. And these are so much better than trying to get 100 2-camera systems, right? Or 100 2-door systems.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
It's the exact same amount of sales work, exact same amount of support work, right? The only difference is the revenue and the load on the servers, really, right? So we're not sure it's going to be yet, but we're finding out, right?
Sure. A couple questions here from the crowd that I've gotten. One, are there any privacy issues with what you're doing that you have to worry about at all?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing we don't do is we don't record audio. State by state has different wiretapping laws. And basically, if you record a conversation without the participant's permission, you're in really deep doo-doo, right? So in some states, that's single party consent, which means if you and I are having a conversation, I can record secretly and that's legal. In many states, it's 2-party consent. But for no states is it 0-party consent, right? And when you've got cameras up recording audio, right, all over a building, in the stairwells and the elevators, people think they're alone, right? And you can't record their audio. So that's a big one. On the video side, there's no cameras in bathrooms. There's no cameras in changing rooms, right? There's only cameras where you don't have what's called a reasonable expectation of privacy, right? But if you're out walking down the street and I can follow you and see what you're doing and I can see it with my own eyes, right? I can just record you from a stationary camera from building 2, and that's all legit, right? It starts to get more interesting when you start to do face recognition, because now you're tracking individuals to some extent, right? And we're watching closely to see if new laws come out around this. None have yet, right? We obviously want to play along.
Sure.
But it's a little bit different than just recording your image, because now we can see where you've been for the last 30 days. Yes, they're all public spaces, right? Yep. And so you don't have a reasonable expectation of privacy there. So far, everyone says that's fine. So that's what we're doing. If that changes, we'll change. But for right now, we're on at least the right side of the law.
Awesome. And last question here, and then we'll wrap up. Where do you kind of see this business in the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah. So we got to get a lot bigger, a lot faster, right? So we're doing about 10K a month in recurring revenue, and that's got to be over 100K a month, a couple 100K a month for us to be a real business, right? We got to be able to pay people and not have to go to the VC well every 18 months, that sort of thing, right?
Sure.
So if we're gonna be successful, we got to get upright and be cash flow positive and running a real company, right? And the next broadcast probably be at the office instead of at home, right? And meanwhile, we're highly cash efficient, right? This is actually quieter than my office, so that's why I did the broadcast. That says a lot about what a co-working space is like when you're trying to do a broadcast, right? So on the technology side, we got a lot of neat stuff in development that has to not just be working, but it has to be working at scale with all the edge cases sorted out. It's really easy to make a demo of this stuff, at least it is for us or people who are versed in the technology. It's really hard to roll it out to thousands of locations with hundreds of users and make everyone have a good experience all the time, right? All the edge cases are what gets you in this stuff, right? no immediate examples come to mind, but every now and then you just see it, you're like, oh yeah, right. That could happen the way we built it, right? Okay, we need to fix that, right? And so that's just something we need to run down. I think the third one is we have as we get bigger and we have a lot of customers out there using the system, we need to make sure they have the ability to say, no, that's not a dog, right? No, that's not a bike, that's a mailbox, right? No, that's not Chris, that's Rick, right? That sort of stuff. So that we can use our customers as the crowd that makes things more intelligent, right? We need to close that feedback loop, right? So I think from a feature standpoint, that's a big one for us, kind of on that time frame.
Terrific. Well, we are here at 12:30, so I will let you go. But thank you so much for the time today. It's been a great discussion. Hopefully it's been helpful to everyone who is listening in today. And yeah, really appreciate it. Good luck with the rest of the race.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for the time.
All right. Have a wonderful day. Take care now.
You too. Bye.
Bye.